I'm not an economist. I don't play one on TV. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express, so there's no magic economic powers imbued in me. I, I think I'm like a lay person. I just look at the news and some things. I can't spout out economic theory. I don't know anything about Keynesian economics, but common sense is common sense. At the end of the day, it's really not that hard to understand how things are supposed to work. I mean, if anybody who runs their own household knows the basic logic. You don't buy more than you can afford. You have a budget. You meet the budget. There are basics that have to occur, and that is true for any economy. One of the things also that I'm struck is the arrogance of the West. I mean, as Andre alluded to, we just assume that, hey, we are the world's best producers of X. Only we produce X, and the world is addicted to X. Therefore, we will always be the producer of X. And if you want X and you're doing something wrong against us, we're going to sanction you so you can't get X anymore. The problem is Russia's going, well, I guess we have to learn how to build X. And then they do. Look at China in chips. The arrogance of America saying we're going to cut China off from the chip market, not just communist China. We're going to cut the Taiwanese off from the chip market too, because we don't want to be vulnerable to any potential conflict in Taiwan that drowns us out. So we're going to transfer all this stuff to America. We're going to tell the Dutch, you can't give your specific lithograph technology to these people. We're going to keep it ourselves because only we then can build, I don't know, is it 14 nano? It's some sort of fancy term they use. There's a number and then a couple letters that begin with an N. And I guess it deals with the size of the chip and its ability to process stuff. And then it was like, well, don't worry, the Chinese, they'll never be able to catch up. And if they do, it'll take them years. Well, the last I checked, Biden's Build Back Better plan was about bringing 4G technology to rural America. So America's locked in on 4G technology. I mean, we do have some 5G. I got a 5G phone here. It doesn't work very well. It's not the phone's problem. It's 5G. We don't do it very well. But China's sitting there going, yeah, we've deployed 5G everywhere. We got 6G down the road, and we're looking at 7G. And you're going, wait a minute, how can you do 7G with insufficient chip technology? China's like, yeah, we sort of got this one figured out too. And they do. They're producing the chips, and they're producing them on a commercial scale. They're getting them out there. Am I saying it right? Huawei, Huawei. Yeah. Sorry,
Huawei.
Again, American Marine. I butcher things. I apologize to anybody I might have insulted by that. But apparently their cell phones are pretty damn good. I mean, we're like, you can't use the Huawei cell phone. It's a threat to national security. Well, I think we can't use it because it's better than the iPhone, according to the people who use it. The Chinese are doing everything better than we do. And one of the reasons is because we decided we didn't want to play with them anymore. And so, we picked up our ball and walked away thinking the Chinese would never know how to make a ball. They've made the ball and they've redefined the game, and they're now doing things that we can't even imagine. And it's across the board. We're sitting here struggling with clean energy, green energy and all this stuff. The Chinese are like, yeah, we got this one too. The Chinese, at least they're honest about it. They don't pretend like Europe is that we're going to cut back on carbon emissions. We're going to cut back drastically and somehow magically come up with green technology that can replace coal-fired machines, replace nuclear energy, or getting rid of nuclear energy, and all this stuff. And as a result, Europe is floundering. The Chinese are going, yeah, we're not there yet on green. So what we're going to do is we're going to double down on coal production. We're going to get all the power out there that we need, get us up to speed. And then once we got everything running on all cylinders, we're going to start producing at scale. You see, in the West, we introduced pilot plants. We've got a pilot plant doing wind turbines here. Chinese are like, no, when we deploy wind turbines, it's going to run the whole damn country. When we deploy, hydrogen, I guess there's some sort of liquid hydrogen fuel kind of stuff. I'm not an expert on this, but that's the next level stuff. It's going to be done production scale. The Chinese are scaling up so that when they make the transition from carbon emitting energy to this green energy, they can do it quickly and efficiently. In the West, we have no clue what we're doing. We're shouting that oil's bad, coal's bad. Okay, let's assume for a second they're right. But how are you going to get the replacements for that stuff up to scale if you're shutting down that which powers the economy necessary to bring it up to scale? There's a total inconsistency here, and we're floundering. The Russians are getting better at this too. Again, I think the greatest gift we ever gave to Russia was sanctioning them. We did a couple things by sanctioning them. One, we liberated them from the West and their addiction to the West. In the 1990s and at the end of the 1980s, during perestroika times, etc., Russia became enamored with the West. They thought that was going to solve all their problems. They just be like Mike. And the problem is Mike didn't want them to be like Mike. That's a saying. I think that goes back to Michael Jordan, like
right,
Mike.
Right. And that would have been true with Michael Jordan too, because Michael Jordan was, I don't know if you watched that documentary, he was a ruthless MFer. Like he would break your legs before you got better than him. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, well, just talk to Larry Bird about Mike. Yes, Larry Bird was a ruthless guy too. But the point is, Russia had to learn the hard way that the West didn't like Russia, didn't want Russia to be like them. That was the decade of the 90s. And then Russia had to emerge, and it took a while for the Russians to break their addiction. Like an abused, somebody in an abusive relationship, you always want to believe that while they're abusing you, that they love you, that they're coming back for you, that they will change, that the problem's me, not them. If I change, they'll learn to love me. And so the Russia was going through this whole thing. You had about 20% of the population that were stuck in this abused mode. The West if I just change, the West will learn to love me, and then everything will be okay. Well, bam, sanctions came, and the relationship was over. It was done, and it was the harshest divorce yet, but it was necessary because now this 20% of Russian society either left, and it wasn't that many that left. I mean, Russia's 150 million people, and 700,000 left. Okay, and they were all Navalny supporters. Doesn't matter. And most of them are coming back because they realized they made a mistake, that Russia's okay, the West sucks. But it doesn't matter. The Russians now were able to revamp their economy without having to worry about alienating 20% of the population, which in a democracy like Russia is, if you lose 20% of the vote, you lose elections. Putin doesn't win elections by 98%. He wins by winning 56%, 61%, 62% of the vote. Like we do here in the West. He doesn't, roll in with the artificial Saddam Hussein, I won with 99.9% support of the people. And so in Russia, if Putin had done something like a harsh divorce with the West economically, he probably would have lost re-election. And the parliament, the Duma, probably would have seen, political parties come in that would change the political direction that Russia's on. So this was a gift for the Vladimir Putin, because one of the things holding Russia back was this 20% of the Russian economic entity saying, oh, no, we need to be thoroughly integrated with the West and all this stuff. Not anymore. It's done. And Putin doesn't get in any political trouble for it. It's all the West's fault. And the other thing that happened was the oligarchs. I mean, Putin inherited these oligarchs. Again, the decade of the 90s, Russia was so far down, so close to total collapse, that people don't understand the level of the miraculous recovery that's taken place under Putin's direction, under his leadership. If you truly studied what Putin has done to turn things around, you'd probably fall in love with the guy, but we're not allowed to do that because he's Vladimir Putin, he's evil, and you can't say anything good about him. But the man has led Russia out of the abyss. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a dictatorship, ladies and gentlemen. He has to actually sit down and work with the people he has. And the people he had at the beginning were these disgusting oligarchs who controlled the Russian economy. And Putin had to bring them under control, but he couldn't really, because the level of control they had was was real, in depth. And they were stripping wealth away, taking out, buying yachts, buying buildings, investing billions, putting in banks. And that was also hurting the Russian economy. But Putin couldn't solve the oligarch problem because if you kick them all out, your economy collapses. That's the opposite of what Putin was trying to do. Enter sanctions. We go around in our genius and we sanction all the Russian oligarchs and we strip all their money and we steal all their money. And it's over for them. And Putin turns around and says, don't come back here looking for sympathy. You all decide to leave Russia, take your money out. And so stay out. If you come back, understand this, the game's changed. The day of you taking your wealth out of Russia is over. Anything you make must be reinvested back into Russia. And we're not going to let you get away with breaking the rules anymore. Very strict. And so Putin's been able to radically reform the Russian economy, to reimagine it, redirect it. And there's some pretty cool things happening. If you go and take a look at the largest economies in Russia today, let's take Novosibirsk. They have an agency for international development there. It's a quasi-government, it's a sort of a fusion between private industry and government. The idea is to allow foreign investment to come in and facilitate the journey through Russian bureaucracy, basically to simplify things, because the Russians are in the business of encouraging investment. And man, they don't know what to do because everybody's coming, everybody's investing, everybody's building. I mean, they're stunned. And we in the West, we don't understand this. We have people out there. I mean, my God, we have people out there that still think that Russia's just a big gas station. And so we look at Western, energy figures. I read the stuff they write. I mean, it's hilarious. Russia's economy is shrinking. Did you know that Russia's economy is shrinking because they're running a deficit because there's reduced oil income? Guys, you don't know the Russian economy. If you think there's reduced oil income, you know nothing about the Russian economy. Russia's running a surplus, and it's getting bigger now because the price of oil has gone up. The European Union could not impose its cap of $60. Russian oil selling at $100. They might even give a discount to $80 to encourage people buying it. But they're making money hand over fist right now. And then what are they doing with that money? Investing it in Russia. I mean, the Russian economy, I wouldn't say that this is a sustainable model, but it's a model that's working under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Someday Russia hopes that all sanctions will be lifted and it can get back to doing business the normal way. But at a time and place where the West is trying to strangle Russia, has basically blocked Russia's access to everything, the Russian economy is succeeding, unlike Germany, unlike France, unlike the United States. Russia's doing very well. And we in the West don't understand it. We don't get it. And because we don't get it, we can't imagine policies to deal with it. So we have politicians out there putting forward Russian policies that are so far removed from the reality of Russia as to be useless. This is why Russia no longer cares about the West, because we don't matter anymore. We're not relevant. Even when Russia wants to sit down with us at a table, we don't bring anything to the table but ignorance. And Russia's tired of dealing with ignorant Americans, ignorant Europeans. They have a whole brave new world out there that wants to do business with Russia. There's the whole African continent that needs to be developed. Russia's taking the lead on that. Latin America. And trust me, at some point in time, when Europe's going to come to its senses and realize that maybe being good friends with your next door neighbors a lot better than being good friends with that person that lives halfway across the world.
Right. That's blowing up your pipelines. Yeah. Yeah. No, all those points are very well taken. And to that earlier point you made about like renewable energy and green energy, it's interesting because as part of Germany's struggles economically, there's an agency, the LFO Institute for Economic Research, that talked about how Germany's transition to so-called green energy has been challenging and difficult, and it has helped precipitate this issue of contraction. And why is part of it is because Germany has de-invested from the real economy, in part because they've cut themselves off from a huge supplier of gas and oil, Russia. And they're not making the connection too that one of the reasons why, let's say, a China, as you said, Scott, can do both, can invest in the real economy, understand that, oh yeah, you're a country of 1.4 billion people, you might need coal, you might need some so-called dirty energy to ensure that that industry continues to develop and develop as rapidly as possible, so people don't, starve, go hungry, don't have jobs, those kind of basic things, and also infrastructure gets built. Germany's not doing that. Germany is not transitioning into a green economy with government support in the real economy. It's not making that transition in that way. It's saying, okay, yeah, we'll just give it to whoever the highest bidder is, and we'll cut ourselves up from probably our most reliable partner in Russia, what could be our most reliable partner, as well as try to go green, which is in German terms, it's just profiteering. And then you mentioned China and the Huawei phone. Well, you'll get a kick out of this. Right after Gina Raimondo, the Commerce Secretary of the United States, went to China, she said, "Oh, everything went great. We had great talks." Then she goes to the media and says, "I'm really disturbed about how Huawei was able to make that nice new phone, that Huawei Mate 60 Pro phone with all self-reliant, the highest advanced chips all on its own. China was able to do it. We don't know how. They must have stolen something." This is how Chinese people repaid her. They pulled in money to make a little promotional billboard, which basically insinuates, and this was going viral all over China. It was all over X too at some point, Twitter, and basically saying Gina Raimondo is a great promoter of Huawei phones because she can't stop talking about them. She can't stop talking about how awful they are. And here, this tweet says, in 2021, she said that U.S. needs to work with Europe to slow China's innovation rate. And then 2023, she's on billboards in China selling Huawei. Sadly, she's not getting paid. So, I think this just goes to show the absolute absurdity of it all when it comes to the economic consequences. I don't know. It's like, we're dog owners. We tend to think a lot about number twos. Well, with people, you tend not to want to go where you sleep. You don't want your dog to go where they sleep. You don't want yourself to go where you sleep. But that seems to be what Europe, especially, I mean, the United States, I think, is riding on top of Europe. But Europe in particular is doing that right now in all intents and purposes.
Well, and there's another, I don't want to come off sounding too woke because I'm the opposite of woke. But there's a reality that we have to deal with here. The majority people in the United States and the majority people in Europe look like me, white. And we are full of the white man's burden, meaning that we are so full of ourselves. Look, I like who I am. I'm not a self-hating white guy. I love being me. I think I'm okay. I'm physically active at an advanced age. That's okay. I think I'm okay. I'm not unhappy being who I am. But I recognize that our governments in Europe and the United States have utter disdain for people who don't look like us. For instance, the Ukrainians who look like us, they're white. They talked about, well, India and China, those people, them yellow people, them brown people, they're not able to process complex thinking like we
Lower
do.
Intellectual
levels. And God forbid the Africans. I mean, I heard, I keep hearing, well, we'll just withdraw from Africa, surround it, and let them cannibalize themselves because that's what those black people do. They're cannibals. The inherent racism, when the reality is, I was invited to the Russian embassy. Oh my God, Scott, you're a Putin stooge. Hey guys, if Russia's the biggest problem set we have right now, and I think people would agree that there's a big problem right now with Russia. And the only way you solve a problem is to be able to accurately define the problem. Would you, A, stay at home and watch mainstream media, or B, go to the Russian embassy, meet the ambassador, meet the defense attaché, meet the various consular officers, and talk to them about these problems and get educated and informed. I went to the Russia-Africa evening. I got to meet not just the Russians, but the Africans and talk to them. If you think for a second that the Africans are unsophisticated, backwoods, yokel, local, you don't know anything about Africa. These guys can carry on the most in-depth conversations about the most complex topics imaginable. They have economic savvy. They know where they want to go. They understand global geopolitics better than we do in many cases. They definitely know Africa better than we do. And if you don't treat them with respect, they know that. They can feel that. That's one of the reasons why they flock around Russia, because Russia treats them with respect. Russia treats them as equals. I think we have to stop believing that the Chinese are a bunch of little yellow men who eat rice out of a bowl. And all they can do is run around with buck teeth and go.
That's how I grew up. That's how
That's it. The cartoons.
you get taught. That's how you get taught.
And so, the Chinese are pretty damn smart. They win all of the mathematic Olympics. Okay. You know who else pretty damn smart that we don't give any credit to? Them Iranians. Them Iranians. They're a bunch of Muslims, they're Muslim. You didn't know that, did you? They're Muslim. And they like to beat themselves on the back and they do weird stuff and they just want to run out and blow themselves up, them Iranians. They're actually pretty sophisticated people with a deep culture, a long-standing culture. They're proud of their culture. I was invited to an event over at the United Nations where I got to interact with the senior Iranians. And again, the level of sophistication is just beyond imagination. These guys are smart, and it's reflected in what they're doing. Iran, like Russia, has been sanctioned to hell and back. And they're doing okay. And they're producing sophisticated stuff, not just in the military, but the civilian stuff as well. They launched a satellite in space. How can Iranians launch a satellite? They barely know how to drive a camel. Oh, no, guys, they're pretty damn good, and they're getting better because we're making them get better. So I just think that we live in this bubble of white supremacy. We just think that because America and Europe, we look like this, and we can all sit there and look at each other going, we're the smartest people in the world. We're the dumbest people in the world, especially about the world we live in. We are so enamored with ourselves that we stop learning about others. All these people out there that hate Russia, everybody goes, Putin, Putin, Putin. If you're using Putin as your excuse to hate Russia, you don't know anything about Russia. Go to Russia, meet the Russians, see it, and suddenly you'll come back and it's literally like being reborn, because it just suddenly you realize that everything you hear here in America is wrong. Now, I'm not saying that Russia's the place for you to be. I'm an American. My place is here at home in America. I want America to be the best country it can possibly be. But in order to do that, we have to learn how to live in a world full of equals. Because at the end of the day, we're all equal. There's no such thing as the super race, the superior race. There is no American exceptionalism. There might be exceptional Americans, meaning those Americans who can excel in a global competition. I'll buy that. But Americans are not inherently exceptional. And if we believe we are, what we do is we stop working. We stop trying to earn it because we believe it should be given to us. You know who's not believing it should be given to them? The Iranians. They are super, super smart, very savvy, very sophisticated people, very cultured people. I have been humbled in their presence by their politeness, by their civility, and by their intelligence and by their integrity. I have to be honest, I haven't dealt with China that much. I'd love to, hint, hint, any Chinese officials out there.
I gotta get you to go. Yeah.
But just because I'm just a curious kind of guy. I want to go to China. I want to meet the Chinese. I want to talk to them. I want to learn about them. I want to be immersed in it so that I can speak intelligently about it. Russia, I did that. I can speak intelligently about Russia. I've been to Iran. I can speak intelligently about Iran. I'd love the opportunity to do that about China. But the one thing And I've been to South Africa, so I can claim to have done that as well. Although, if I'm going to be honest, I'm not as strong on Africa as I should be. Shame on me. But the point is, I want to be. I'm curious, and I don't operate with this mindset that says because I'm American, I'm automatically superior. And when I walk into a room, I should be shown to the head of the table just because I'm American. No, 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 no. To sit at the head of the table, you got to earn it. And you got to earn it through hard work. And that hard work means you have to be an expert in what you're talking about. And if you ain't, you have to sit with everybody else until you become an expert. And right now, America doesn't have the expertise in so many issues, so many subjects. I attend these meetings where they talk about, global geopolitics from an energy security perspective. And the arrogance of the people in that room who, again, all look like me, from America and Europe, about the domination of these multinational oil companies. We're never going to get thrown out of Africa. All we have to do is throw money at the problem. We got money to spend. We throw money at the problem, and them Africans are going to do what we want them to do. Kazakhstan, we're going to control it forever because we just have to throw money at the problem. We'll just come in with money. Iraq, don't worry about Iraq. Money. We're just bringing the money. We'll make Russia, just dangle some money in front of them Ruskies, and they'll roll over, do whatever you want. I mean, what a horrible way to approach life. The first thing is it says so much about you. If you're saying that by putting money on the table, I can control things, that tells me that your value system is based upon wealth, that you don't know a damn thing about poetry. You don't know anything about history. You don't know anything about culture, about language, about any of the things that make life worth living, that create things that you want to spend money on. And when you do this to an Iranian who says, well, money is important, but it's not the most important thing in the world. The most important thing in the world is being true to yourself, true to who you are as a human being. The Chinese, I believe, operate in a similar vein. I know the Russians do. That doesn't mean that they don't. Look, the Chinese are the best businessmen in the world. So don't tell me they don't like money. I've been to Las Vegas. I've seen the Chinaman only floor where the lowest level chip is the $500 chip. I have been to Vegas many times. I have never had a $500 chip. I had. I'm just not that rich, not that good of a gambler. But the Chinese are up there. They know how to make money. The Russians, very successful businessmen. The Iranians, I wouldn't want to get into a business squabble with them because I'm pretty sure that they would just run circles around me. So I'm not trying to say that they don't care about money. What I am saying, though, is that they do put things ahead of money. And one of the things they put ahead of money is being true to who they are, to their culture, to their values, to their religion, to themselves, to their neighbors, etc. In America and in Europe, it's just money. Money talks. That's it. And that's a horrible way to go around living.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.